Welcome, builders of the internet. My name is Jessa and I work in construction. This is my first video of the year, and for a long time I was planning on talking about how gyms are designed, how they motivate people, etc., relating to New Year's resolutions and such. But unfortunately I live in the UK, and because we've just entered into another national lockdown, I haven't really felt like talking about all these places and buildings that I can't visit. So instead of that, I thought I would talk about the effects of homeschooling, which seems to be pretty relevant in the current climate. As always, you can find a link to my sources and timestamps in the description.
It's building on my mind.
What is homeschooling? Homeschooling is when a parent makes the decision to provide education for their child at home, rather than making them go to a school, such as public school or independent private schools or academies. Parents can teach themselves, regardless of whether they have teaching qualifications or not, or they may have private tutors come in or other alternatives. There are some people who receive part-time education at school, in flexi-schooling, and the rest of their education is done at home. In the UK, it is a requirement for people to receive full-time education from the age of 5 and have some form of education until the age of 18, but it isn't a requirement to follow the national curriculum. The documents simply say that children must have a suitable education, which means that it must be appropriate for their age, ability and aptitudes of the child, in order to help them function as an independent UK citizen later in life. Local authorities may have minimum requirements for literacy and numeracy that the child needs to meet in their education, but their education may not be deemed suitable, especially if it results in excessive isolation that impedes social development. As for other countries around the world, homeschooling is accepted in many places, including Australia, New Zealand, Canada, South Africa, the United States and some parts of Europe. In some countries like India, there may not necessarily be a provision explicitly allowing homeschooling, but it is informally practiced and accepted. However, there are a number of countries where homeschooling is actually illegal, such as the Netherlands, Germany, and Spain. Under international law, there isn't a right to homeschooling, but there is a right to education, and parents should have the freedom to raise their children in accordance with any religious and moral beliefs, without having the state interfering. Some of the common reasons that parents may wish to homeschool their child include when there might be difficult access to get to a local school, say they might live in the middle of nowhere, or perhaps for religious or cultural beliefs, including any ideological views. Some parents are also dissatisfied with the mainstream system, and their child may face bullying problems. There may be other special education needs that is felt best catered for at home as well, which is why people choose to do homeschooling. So what are the effects of homeschooling? One of the main stereotypes about homeschooling is that it limits a child's social interaction because they aren't constantly surrounded by a number of peers in the same age category as them every day. However, there are multiple studies that prove this isn't true, as homeschooled children tend to interact with more people of varying ages, arguably out in the real world more often through volunteering and other clubs and activities that they participate in. In a 2006 study, social skills were compared between homeschooled and public school children. The study found that in their tests for empathy, assertiveness, cooperation and self-control, homeschooled children's scores were consistently higher, especially in girls and older children. It's really interesting looking at some of the research available. Multiple studies have shown that parents who homeschool their own children believe that their child's social skills match that of their school-educated peers, if not being even better. However, it isn't always clear what homeschool children think about their own social skills. In some instances, they rate their own skills as lower than those attending conventional schools, but overall, the limited research indicates that they believe their social skills are similar to those of other children. In terms of emotional intelligence, which is defined as a cross-section of emotional and social competencies that determine how well we understand and express ourselves, relate with others, and cope with daily demands and pressures. In emotional intelligence research studies, homeschooled children scored significantly lower than other groups for their levels of conflict, as well as significantly higher than public school children for their feelings of closeness to their best friends. For social networks, it's found that homeschooled children have a similar number of close friends of a similar quality compared to school children. And research generally paints a favourable picture of homeschooled children who appear to have a higher quality of relationships with close friends, parents and other adults, and also tend to have more positive attitude about themselves with higher life satisfaction. In general, they appear to experience less stress and emotional turmoil, especially compared to their school peers. When it comes to attending university or the equivalent, some professors perceive homeschooled students to be less socially confident compared to others, especially at the beginning stages of university. However, apart from this, adults who are homeschooled as children don't appear to be impaired in the real world in the research studies, and show to even excel in many areas measured. Homeschooling during the pandemic. With the pandemic affecting many facets of life, school has certainly been no exception. The vast majority of school children have had to continue education, with their parents having to support and accommodate for it at home. Many schools are providing their lessons virtually via Microsoft Teams and the like, though some parents have opted for online courses and resources too. Unfortunately, this has proven to have many challenges, with not everyone being able to have sufficient materials at home, such as printers, electronic devices and reliable internet connection not always being available. What are the effects of homeschooling throughout a pandemic? There have been multiple studies about how homeschooling has affected teachers, parents and students. From an online survey with around 2,000 participants, there was concern from teachers that students would lose interest and focus, which may lead to a decline in academic performance overall. Across Europe, the result of the research indicates that generally homeschooling has had an adverse effect on parents and children. There have been increases in domestic conflict, parents exhibiting alcohol or substance use, as well as many cases of what is deemed as poor quality homeschooling. Parents have also claimed to receive insufficient support whilst trying to homeschool their children. This isn't to say there's only negative response about homeschooling. Up to 38% have claimed positive effects, including an improvement with their family relationships and relief from being bullied or other school troubles. Those with older children over the age of 12 have found the experience to be easier compared to those with children under the age of 12, with parents reporting lower levels of worry and stress. With children who have had underlying mental health conditions, there has been a more significantly adverse effect of homeschooling. For example, for some with underlying conditions, they may be unable to fully participate in homeschooling, and some smaller studies have suggested that homeschooling can be more challenging for some groups of people, as there is more demand for some skills such as memory and flexible thinking, which can be more challenging especially for some conditions, such as neurodevelopmental disorders. Overall, the current research available does show overwhelmingly adverse effects, especially with some being unprepared for providing means of education remotely. Teachers have had to put a lot of effort into all of these sudden changes, and I know they're working incredibly hard throughout all of this, which I'm sure many are grateful for. This past year has been incredibly difficult for many of us, and I'm so grateful for all the key workers, including teachers, those in education, those in healthcare, etc., who are doing so much for all of us. But that's all I have to say for now. I hope it helped build in your mind.
Thanks for watching this channel, it's building on my mind. Check out my other videos, but first hit the bell and comment, like, subscribe.